Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 26th of December. Now it's 15 to 1, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There are quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment. But before I start, let me take a minute and share a few words about my channel on Rumble under similar name, Levan Gudadze Opinion. If you are watching this update on YouTube, please consider to join our community on Rumble also and subscribe to my Rumble channel. You can see a link on this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. It is very important to me and to project, I believe, to further develop Rumble channel, and well, your subscription will be big help in this regard. Our community is already a little more than 1900, and well, hopefully we will have new members also, and before New Year we will manage to reach 2000. As I said, you can see a link on this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. That's been said, and also, dear friends, I did on Rumble new program exclusive for Rumble Telegram reports, and Rumble community did receive this program with a positively. I had positive feedback, and after New Year celebrations I will resume on daily basis uploading this program Telegram reports, which will be available only on Rumble. And in the future I will definitely try to come up with some more ideas, more content exclusively for Rumble, in attempt to generate this additional interest towards this platform and my channel on this platform. That's been said. Let's talk about news now. And first of all, breaking news for this time, which is that during the night, Kiev regime conducted missile strike in direction of Russian port city Feodosia on Crimea, on southern eastern part of Crimean Peninsula. This is the area here, and according to reports from Russian Defense Ministry, Kiev regime used cruise missiles to conduct strike in Feodosia direction, and the Russian amphibious ship Novocherkassk was hit. Then fire erupted on the ship, and explosions occur. Huge explosions, as you can see on this video, for example. Of course, this amphibious warship did receive probably severe damage as a result of this strike. Governor of Crimea, Aksionov, did reported that one person was killed and two wounded as a result of these strikes. Also, 6 buildings around the point of explosion, point of strike, were damaged, and a number of civilians were evacuated to some other areas. And also, Russian Defense Ministry reported that Russian air defense systems shut down 2 Su-24s that were participating in this strike towards Feodosia. Both planes were shut down 125 kilometers away on the northern eastern side of Nikolaev. So that's official reports about this incident. No information, no precise information what was on that ship, what did explode. Some channels are saying that it was missiles, some channels report about drones, some channels about artillery munition, but Defense Ministry did not share any information on this topic. And in my understanding, most important thing now is that, in my understanding, Western ruling class is beginning its new wave or new attempt to destabilize Russia internally before presidential elections will take place in March, from 15th to 17th of March. And if my reading of big picture is correct, I'm afraid the Western ruling class will use their Ukrainian proxies to intensify these long-range strikes deep inside Russian territory, because they know perfectly well significant part of Russian society quite narrowly reacting on this type of actions. Many people are not just confused but very angry whenever these type of strikes are happening, and among this part of society, many people, according to at least comments that I see on different channels, are demanding very strict, very decisive actions against Kiev regime to be conducted by Moscow, and these people are openly criticizing Kremlin for being too soft on Kiev regime and Ukrainian armed forces, or even Western ruling class. So they are theoretical space which can be used by Western ruling class to destabilize, to further fuel these internal tensions inside the society here in Russia, and to destabilize society itself. I'm afraid they will use the Ukrainian proxies to intensify significantly these long-range strikes deep inside Russian territory. Maybe they will conduct strikes on Crimea Bridge, like Dima from Military Summary, host of Military Summary, said in his prediction today, in today's update. Maybe some other areas will be targeted by Kiev regime, but yet again, I'm quite sure that Western ruling elites will do their best to destabilize Russian society, and these type of actions, these type of long-range strikes, are working in this regards quite effectively, because significant, as I said, significant number of society is not just somewhat confused but very angry that this is still happening, very angry that Kremlin is, according to these people, are too soft on Kiev regime. And well, I guess Kremlin is also monitoring situation, conducting some surveys, and they know, I guess, perfectly well that they cannot allow society to be destabilized. They cannot allow this type of actions from Kiev regime to become a daily routine. And to achieve this, then some decisive actions definitely have to be taken. I don't know what actions. I'm no military expert, but something have to be done to make sure that Kiev regime will lose these long-range strike capabilities, for sure. Because I'm 100% sure this strike has not so much military importance as for Kiev regime or for the Western ruling class, as it has this political and geopolitical importance, because Western ruling elites already are pushing this narrative through their media outlets in the West of regime change in Russia. For some time, this topic was forgotten in the West, but lately they began again working on this narrative of regime change in Russia. So this is significant in my understanding, and well, let's see how Moscow will respond. On this stuff. Now let's talk about some other news, and well, let's go Kherson sector by sector when it comes to a short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. In Kherson direction, no significant changes. Russian side is in full control of situation, although Kiev regime still maintains its foothold on Krinky area. At this point, probably nobody even in Ukraine understands why Kiev regime is not withdrawing forces from Krinky, and why they are sacrificing more and more people in this direction. But Well, Zelensky never did care about lives of Ukrainian citizens, so for him, it don't really matters probably how many Ukrainian soldiers will die in Krinky area while maintaining this absolutely irrelevant foothold on the left bank. And the situation for Ukrainian forces are so difficult that they are now using on the line of front females. And I did share on my Telegram channel this video, for example, when a Russian drone operator did notice it. Ukrainian female soldier, wounded female soldier in these bushes, and probably this female see this drone, and she was waving with hands, asking for help, I guess, and Russian militaries did manage to evacuate her in from that area, and they did provide her with first medical aid. I guess Russian medics did everything to save her life, and well, she did said to Russian militaries that she was left there by Ukrainian soldiers who ran away from the positions. She was left there to die, basically. That's level of morale in Ukrainian armed forces, man. And this is not somebody speaking. This is video footage that you can see here. This is video, which cannot be denied. But anyway, as I said, situation for Ukrainian forces in Kherson direction are extremely difficult. Russian side is in charge, and nothing can happen in this sector in favor of Kyiv regime whatsoever. Nothing at all. When it comes to other sectors of the front line, and well, dear friends, of course, during the previous days there were rumors that Kyiv regime managed to shut down 2 or 3 Russian Su-34 bombers. Some Ukrainian channels did report even about 5 Russian planes that were shut down in this area. I don't believe this is even slightly true, even close to be true. No, 1 or 2 planes probably were shut down. Maybe 3, but definitely not 5. But what is noticeable for last several days, as Military Summary channel did point out, for last several days there are no videos on internet about Russian Air Force strikes with glide bombs in Kherson direction. So some changes did happen in operations of Russian Air Force, and I remind you, dear friends, if I may, that certain channels did speculate that Kyiv regime used F-16s to shut down Su-34s on Kherson direction. And today, early hours of this morning, before statements from Russian Defense Ministry about Su-24s, Ukrainian Su-24s that launched missiles towards Feodosia, some channels were speculating that possibly F-16s were used by Kyiv regime to conduct these strikes also in the direction of Feodosia. Yet again, no official confirmations that Kyiv regime even received F-16s, no official confirmations from any side that F-16s are operational now in Ukraine. But rumors, rumors are circulating that they are, and if Russian Defense Ministry didn't make a statement about involvement of Su-24s, then I guess towards the evening, entire Russian segment of internet will begin sharing information about these F-16 strikes. Although Russian Defense Ministry did not mention any F-16s whatsoever. So tensions are high, and expectations also are high that it's only a matter of days at this point, and Kyiv regime will begin using F-16s on the front line, if they did not already. Let's continue, and well, next is Zaporozhye sector. And according to latest reports, Russian forces are conducting local-scale offensive operations in Rabotina and Verbovo areas and achieving significant success, especially in Rabotna direction. Although settlement itself, this village, is still formally controlled by Kyiv regime, and well, it may stay this way for I don't know, another week or two. At some point, pressure from Russian side probably will be so high that Ukrainian units will just withdraw from Rabotna without any significant fight, because settlement is almost entirely destroyed, and there is nothing really left in this village to hold on to. So I guess Russian side will reclaim Rabotna in upcoming weeks without any significant difficulties. When it comes to South Donetsk direction, main hotspot is Novomikhalovka. According to yet again different channels report different information, sometimes informations that are contradicting each other, because already several days now several channels reporting that Russian units are inside the eastern part of Novomikhalovka, although other channels simultaneously are reporting that Russian forces are encircling Novomikhalovka. This settlement is in partial encirclement now, although clashes are not yet begun inside the village itself. So hard to tell what's going on, but one is 100% that this settlement is at least partially encircled from northern and southern side. And when it comes to Donetsk sector of the front line, yesterday Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu reported to President of Russia Putin that Marinka settlement is on 100% Russian control now. Entire territory of Marinka until last building is under Russian control, which is a big deal, of course, because clashes for Marinka were continuing for so long. Although in my understanding, at least for last months, Marinka was under Russian control anyway, no matter if one building or two buildings were formally under control of Ukrainian units. But well, now it's official. Russian Defense Minister did made a statement that Russian forces are in full control of Marinka, and next hotspot's gonna be, of course, Georgievka, which is on the western side of Marinka, and of course Krasnogorovka. Krasnogorovka is also quite a big or relatively big settlement, another stronghold of Kyiv regime in this area, and I believe in next several weeks clashes will begin in Krasnogorovka also. When it comes to Avdiivka direction, no significant changes. Russian forces increasing pressure on Ukrainian units, and despite the information that was spread in Ukrainian media initially about possible withdrawal of Ukrainian armed forces from Avdiivka, at this point we don't have any indicators that this is happening. Yesterday, several media outlets and Telegram channels did reported that rotation was taking place in Avdiivka, just routine rotation. But because city is under operational control of Russian armed forces, no one can get in and out without being noticed. And more than 100 Ukrainian military personnel who was rotating and basically who was going back to their homes for holidays, I guess. Russian side, according to reports yet again, Russian side did track movement of this column of this Ukrainian military personnel, and then targeted that column, and more than 100 Ukrainian military personnel was killed as a result of these strikes. Although same time, there are some speculations on internet that it was not Russian forces that neutralized this more than 100 Ukrainian military personnel, but Ukrainian neo-Nazis, because this personnel was the one that was don't obeying orders and were demanding rotation to be withdrawn from Avdiivka, and they were basically given formally opportunity to withdraw, and then were executed by Ukrainian neo-Nazis hard to tell without photo or video confirmation. Hard to tell what happened, but even Ukrainian channels are reporting that more than 100 Ukrainian military personnel left Avdiivka but did not arrive nowhere. So they are missing. So maybe in upcoming days we will learn some more information about it. Let's see. When it comes to northern flank of Donetsk sector, Bakhmut and surrounding areas, Russian forces yet again, increasing pressure on both flanks of the Bakhmut, from Kurdyumovka to Klishevka on the southern flank, and around Bogdanovka on the northern side, Bogdanovka, Ivanovska, which is Krasnaya. This settlement has also two names. And yesterday afternoon, some Russian channels did begin reporting that some clashes are taking place in direction of Kalinovka also. And Kalinovka is on the western part of Bogdanovka. I find it difficult to understand what clashes these channels were talking about, because Bogdanovka is not yet under full Russian control. Only half of this village controlled by Russian forces. And according to reports that I see, and well, maybe some reckoning force operation was conducted by Russian military intelligence units, possibly, or I don't know what else might happen, but well, several channels did report that there was some clashes in Kalinovka direction, which is obviously next step after Bogdanovka. Of course, Russian forces will concentrate attention on Kalinovka. It's just logical. After all, I said many times before that Chasiv Yar is on high ground, and the best way to conduct assault operations in direction of Chasiv Yar is northern side, from Bogdanovka, Kalinovka areas. But overall, at this point, nothing is happening that can be called breakthrough on flanks of Bakhmut or in direction of Chasiv Yar. Also, some updates on Krasny Liman direction. Yesterday, Russian channels did report that as a result of successful local-scale offensive operations, Russian units forced Ukrainian counterparts to retreat towards Yerebets river, and forward units of Russian armed forces on Krasny Liman direction in this sector are about 2-3 kilometers away from Terny settlement, from Yampolovka, and entire this area. I guess if it's true, then I guess it's only a matter of weeks at this point, and eventually Ukrainian units will be forced to go back to a right bank of this Yerebets river. Also, Russian forces are conducting activities on the southern flank of Seversk city, and hotspots here are Vysyola and Razdolovka, these two settlements mainly. Although at this point, still too early to talk about some decisive actions in Seversk direction. It's still local scale operations, and when it comes to Kupiansk direction, main hotspot traditionally at this point are Sinkovka settlement on the northern-eastern part of Kupiansk, and some channels are reporting that Ukrainian position of Ukrainian forces are so dramatic in Sinkovka area that in next week or two Russian forces probably will be able to establish full control over this village, which is somewhat important, of course, but it will definitely not change strategically anything on this sector of the front line, because Russian units are just in several kilometers away from Kupiansk anyway, with Sinkovka or without Sinkovka, and to continue further advances, large-scale offensive operations have to be begun to make sure that flanks of main assault units are secured. And the large-scale offensive operations, if they will take place this winter, probably most likely towards end of January or first half of February, but definitely not in next several days or weeks. And this is it when it comes to short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. As you can see, no crucial changes on any of the sectors of the front line. Yes, big news yesterday. Big news was in Russian media that Marinka is under full Russian control. Although, to me personally, Marinka already was under Russian control for at least several weeks, because, maybe one street was left under formal control of Kyiv regime, and it was only like matter of time, and the Russian forces will establish full control over that part also, and it did happen. So yesterday major news was this development around Marinka, and well, that's it. That's it. On the rest of the sectors of the front, Russian side just increasing pressure methodically, but no crucial changes have been reported. Well, now let's talk about some other news. And well, I did report it about this Ukrainian strike. Early hours of this morning, I did report about Marinka. Shoigu did report to Russian president about situation in the front line, and especially on southern flanks of Donetsk sector. Also, quite interesting information that according to RT, Ukrainian draft dodgers face banking ban, and not just this. If you remember, I did say a few days ago, maybe even several times, that Kyiv regime, in attempt to force Ukrainian refugees from Europe to go back to Ukraine, Kyiv regime will begin terrorize them and their relatives, and that's exactly what is happening now. And Ukrainian authorities are not even shy to state it openly. And now draft have been introduced to Ukraine's parliament on sanctions against citizens of Ukraine that will dodge, that are draft dodgers basically. So let's read several sentences here. Ukraine may punish draft dodgers who are hiding from mobilization abroad by denying them a consular or banking service. MP Vadim Ivchenko told the news outlet Strana UA on Monday. The Ukrainian parliament is preparing a major reform of the military service system that is intended to facilitate boosting the ranks of the army. President Vladimir Zelensky has indicated that up to 500,000 people may be called to arms, while Defense Minister Rustem Umerov has identified the men in foreign nations as among the sources of recruits. And well, it's not just the banks will freeze assets of citizens of Ukraine that will refuse to go to enlistment offices, and not just embassies and consulates of Ukraine that will refuse to provide any documentation if needed to those refugees. But also, according to this draft law, I did read with number of sanctions there. If this law will be adopted, then Ukrainian citizens that will avoid mobilization will lose almost every right that they have, including on their own properties. They would not be able to sell their properties. They would not be able to take credit on a bank, obviously, because their assets will be frozen. They would not be able to even drive a car. They would not be able to receive a driver's license. So Kyiv regime gonna make as difficult life for these people as possible. And this is what is written in the law itself, in this draft itself. Just imagine what Kyiv regime and Ukraine's secret services will do otherwise by terrorizing these people. So, well, it's if citizens of Ukraine who flee this failed state for Europe were thinking that they are safe, they have to reconsider their opinion, because they are not. Russia Today is also reports that Russia's weapons industry is outproducing West, according to Deputy Prime Minister. Well, let's read several sentences here too. Russia is outpacing Western countries in arms production, despite the Western push to provide military support to Ukraine. Russian Deputy Prime Minister and Trade Minister Denis Manturov has said in a wide-ranging interview with the RIA Novosti on Monday. Manturov offered a glimpse into the state of Russia's defense industry, which has switched into high gear to support the military as the Ukrainian conflict is about to enter its third year. According to the minister, Russia's military factories have increased output and delivery rates by 10-12 times for certain categories of material and hardware. Although Manturov did not go into specifics and he did not say exactly what type of weapons, production of what type of weapons and munition have been increased, which is understandable. Most likely this information is classified and cannot be shared with public, but information itself, this baseline information that Russian military industrial complex is in high gear and working in 24/7 regime to provide the army with all necessary. It's interesting itself and proves that Russian industrial complex is still forced to be reckoned with. Although, of course, I would not compare it with the Western industrial capabilities, because Western states, major Western industrial states, did not mobilize nothing. So they may are not able to produce as many weapons as Russian industry at this point, but we all understand that if US will mobilize its economy to produce weapons, if Germany will mobilize its economy to produce weapons strictly, of course they will be able to also increase their production rates in many times. So they are just, at this point, probably this information is absolutely correct. At this point, Russia produces more weapons than Western countries because they don't need to. That's the point. They just don't need to. I don't think that Germany, for example, will invest in military industry on its industrial sector additional billions to start producing weapons just for Ukraine, for this crisis in Ukraine. They don't need that. Although with years to come, with constant increase of spendings on military, which is inevitable, I believe. That's why Western ruling class provoked this conflict with in Ukraine, with the further systematic increase of defense spendings. Eventually, of course, Western industries and Western military industrial complex will reach quite high levels of production of weapons and munition. Also quite interesting report here that Ukraine accuses New York Times of working for the Kremlin. Well, that's, I don't know how we should take this information seriously or just for laugh. But well, let's read it. The journalists covering the Russia-Ukraine conflict for the New York Times have been recruited by Russian secret services. Kiev's information warfare agency has said on Monday. They have information warfare agency, man, in Kiev. They really are sick there. Zelensky and his associates, isn't it? The state-run Center for Countering Disinformation. Can you imagine, man? This top disinformation hub, which is Kiev, is creating centers to counter disinformation. That's on its own history or story. But anyway, the state-run Center for Countering Disinformation made its statements while blasting the New York Times for its recent article about the prospects of peace negotiations between Moscow and Kiev. In order to write this text, the Russian Federation has used American journalists who were recruited during the war in Russia. The CCD said in a statement on social media without elaboration. The story published in New York Times on Saturday lists its Moscow bureau chief Anton Troyanovsky, together with the staff writers Adam Entus and the Julian E. Barnes. And this article basically was about some signals from Moscow. This article was based on some sources of New York Times, among them some former high-ranking officials in Russia and some Western officials. And according to New York Times, Putin was signaling since the September, basically, to the West that he is ready to conduct negotiations and freeze this conflict. Well, if any side has to be critical of this article in New York Times, I guess it's supposed to be Moscow, but in Moscow didn't really pay too much attention to this article, because who cares, man? Who cares what kind of nonsense New York Times will write on daily basis in their pages? I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but for Kyiv regime, for whatever reason, it was a big deal, and they began openly accusing journalists of New York Times that they are assets of Russian secret services, man. I don't know. Let's see if New York Times will react in any way on this development. Maybe Kyiv regime just has an allergy on word negotiation. Maybe because Zelensky too many times did said that there will be no negotiations with Moscow and so on. But in article there was a line that Putin is ready for, and will agree to freeze this conflict, which is not true. Which is not true. Putin will agree to negotiate to achieve main goals of special military operation. And Peskov, press spokesman of Russian president, did said, I don't know how many times, man, at least few dozens of times, that since the beginning of special military operation, that Putin is not against negotiations. He is open for negotiations, but these negotiations have to fulfill Russian interests. That's all it takes to conduct negotiations. So Moscow was never against any negotiations at all. It was Kyiv regime that banned itself basically by law to negotiate anything with Moscow. So there will be Moscow will not agree no freezing of this conflict and stuff like that, because after all, Russian side is step by step, methodically demilitarizing and denazifying Ukraine, and this will continue. No rush, no extremes, really. Methodically, all targets will be achieved, and it's in best interests of Ukraine, really, to conduct negotiations as soon as possible with Moscow, because sooner negotiations begun, less Ukraine will lose. It's simple. Although at this point, I'm not sure if Ukraine as a state will survive after this conflict will end. My understanding is that this failed state will be divided between the sides, but negotiations can still take place, and I don't think Moscow will be against. It's just terms that Moscow will set up for opposite side. Anyway, let's continue. But information is funny itself, that Kyiv regime now accusing New York Times for being Kremlin propaganda, man. Level of craziness in Kyiv, man, it's just limitless for sure. Anyway, let's continue with some other news. Well, next is Middle East, of course, major hotspot on the global map. RT is reporting that Israel kills senior Iranian general in Syria during the strike. So Israeli warplanes struck the Syrian capital of Damascus on Monday, killing the senior Iranian commander. Iran's elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said that the general Sued Razi Mousavi was in Syria to support the anti-Israel resistance front. News of the strike was first reported by Iran's Tasnim news agency and confirmed shortly afterwards by the IRGC. So Well, next level of escalation between Israel and Iran. Escalation that I don't think it's in best interest of anybody in this region. I don't really understand why Netanyahu's government is escalating so much with everyone, with Lebanon, with Iran, and with all the neighbors, basically, because nobody is, an entire world, with the exception of a few countries in the collective West, because nobody nobody understands and nobody supports actions of Netanyahu's government and cruelty of IDF towards civilians in Palestine, in the Gaza Strip, and also in the West Bank. But maybe when I was reading this news about escalations between Israel and Iran, Israel and Lebanon, I was thinking maybe this is the terms that was imposed on Israel for Western support, that they have to escalate with Iran and Hezbollah. Maybe it's a Western demand, really, demand of the Western ruling class from Netanyahu's government to escalate with Iran and Hezbollah to receive support. Because I don't see really any logical reasoning behind this type of actions of Israel. Because they cannot, they are struggling, IDF is struggling in Gaza Strip. IDF is seriously struggling in Gaza Strip. I don't think they are capable of conducting successful operations against Hezbollah. I don't think they are able to defeat Hezbollah at all without using nuclear weapons. And I don't think IDF is capable of defeating Iran for sure without using nuclear weapons, and even with use of nuclear weapons. So there is no, I truly find it difficult to understand what Netanyahu's government does, because he is endangering Israel itself and citizens of Israel by these crazy actions. And well, only answer that I find is that maybe it's a Western ruling class that demands from Netanyahu to escalate with Hezbollah, to escalate with Iran, to provoke regional conflict, so that Western ruling elites will interfere. And as a result of this escalation, shipping will be suspended in Persian Gulf and the Hormuz Strait, and China will lose access to energy, oil and gas fields of the Middle East. Maybe that's what is happening. I did spoke about possibility of such a scenario many times before, but we definitely have more and more indicators that things are going in these directions, unfortunately. Because you tell me why Netanyahu's government is escalating with Iran and Hezbollah. I don't understand, man, because this is clearly anti-Israeli step from Netanyahu's government, because they are endangering their own citizens by provoking regional war. But it is what it is. And also, this information is just confirms, this is just additional indicator that something is going on, and something have been prepared in the Middle East, something big, because just look at this statement of head of IDF, Yoav Gallant, that was reported by TASS News Agency. According to him, according to TASS News Agency, head of Israeli armed forces openly began threatening Hezbollah that they know what will happen to Beirut, capital of Lebanon, if there will be clashes between their sides, full-scale clashes. Beirut will experience exactly the same, according to Gallant, as Gaza is experiencing now. So this is also open threat to Hezbollah, to Lebanon, because Beirut, by the way, is not southern Lebanon. Hezbollah's stronghold is southern Lebanon. Beirut, definitely not in the south. So this is direct threat, not just to Hezbollah, but to Lebanon itself and to Lebanese. And why on earth head of IDF, in these times when they are struggling with Hamas in Palestine, in Gaza Strip, why would they provoke other parties in the region, other serious parties in the region, to get involved even more in this conflict, and maybe even with the full force? Where is the logic in these type of actions, man? Are these people extremely delusional and don't really understand what's going on, or maybe they're acting on the orders of Western ruling class and they are intentionally provoking regional war to maintain Western support? Is it a possibility? I don't know. But maybe because, as I said, man, without Western assistance, I don't think Western direct military assistance, I don't think IDF is capable of winning war against Hezbollah and Lebanon. Nothing to be said about Iran, man, which is like 100 times more powerful than Hezbollah. So something, as I said, man, something very strange is going on. Yeah. And unfortunately, there is extremely high risk that actions of Netanyahu's government eventually, under orders of Western ruling class or under its own initiative, but will provoke regional war eventually, which gonna devastate not just Middle East but entire world. But anyway, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that, according to New York Times, Riyadh is not interested to participate in any military actions against Yemeni Houthis in the Red Sea, which is quite understandable. After all, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and their proxies in Yemen itself just recently reached peace agreement with the Yemeni Houthis. And why would they jeopardize this peace agreement now and relationships not just with Houthis but also with Iran, with whom both United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia did improve relationships, extremely well during the previous year. So why would they jeopardize relationships with Iran? They would not. So I don't know why New York Times is surprised that governments in Riyadh are not very keen to participate in any military coalitions or actions against Houthis, but it's not surprising at all. It does makes all the sense to stay out of this mess, because, as I said, they just reach some peace agreement with Houthis and manage to de-escalate, and also they just managed to re-establish diplomatic relationships and improve cooperation with Iran. So why would they jeopardize all these achievements? Anyway, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that according to sources of news agency, Turkish Air Force conducted strikes on the southern eastern part of Syria, on Kurdish military formations there. And lately, probably many of you did notice that Turkey did become significantly active in military operations, not just in northern Syria, but also in Iraq, Kurdistan area, and strikes are taking place on daily basis. And who knows, maybe in upcoming weeks, Turkey will begin some major military operation on both directions, in direction of Iraqi Kurdistan and in northern eastern parts of Syria against Kurdish forces. As far as I know, because of the climate, winter time is a time when large-scale military operations are preferable to be conducted in Middle East, and it's a winter now. So this recent significant increase in activity of Turkish military may be indicator that something big some big operation have been prepared by Ankara, and it may begin just about any time now. Also, RT is reporting that UK to deploy warship to Guyana. That was reported by BBC. So UK is preparing to send the defense diplomacy warship to Guyana in the show of support for the former colony in its recently rekindled border dispute with the neighboring Venezuela, state broadcaster BBC said on Sunday. Well, that's quite interesting. First of all, presidents of Venezuela and Guyana did just a week ago conducted meeting and agree to resolve issues, border dispute, only with political means. So risks that some military confrontation will occur decreased significantly, I hope, in that region. But when it comes to UK's warship have been sent towards Guyana, only question is main question is not why London is getting involved. No one cares about that, man. Question is, will this British ship will sail so far? That's the main question now, man. That will this British warship be able to sail towards South America without breaking down? That's a major question, because at this point I don't think anybody in this world cares about UK's navy. It used to be force to be reckoned with 100 years ago, 200 years ago, but now, nah. There is only 4 to 5 vanguard nuclear capable submarines that are more or less serious stuff, because they have ballistic missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles on board with nuclear warheads, or supposed to have. But even then, at this point, I'm not quite sure that any of those 4 or 5 vanguard class subs of UK's fleet are operational, fully operational. And I'm not being too sarcastic here. I remind you, dear friends, that just recently UK's fleet received 2 new aircraft carriers, and none of them are operational, really. Both aircraft carriers are super expensive pile of garbage. That's what it is, man. Both aircraft carriers are super expensive pile of garbage that are not capable to sail even 100 miles, Nordic miles, without getting broken down. That's how bad those ships are, man. Those aircraft carriers. Well, that's the only question I have. Will this, whatever ship they're gonna send towards Guyana, will that ship manage to reach it? I have some doubts about it. But anyway, I've been, of course, little sarcastic here, but same time, not only sarcastic. Let's say this way. TASS news agency is reporting that Russian nuclear weapons in Belarus in a place and in good condition, said Lukashenko yesterday while having conversation with media. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, Lukashenko find it necessary to highlight that Belarus is now holding, not Belarus itself, but Russia has now tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus that can and will be used if Belarus is under attack of any sorts. And well, this is, I guess, warning shots from Minsk towards, first of all, Warsaw. This is warning shots for Warsaw, for leadership of Poland to stay away from Belarus, because Belarusian secret services did state many times that there are some sabotage groups that have been trained in Poland with the active under umbrella of Polish secret services and military, and Minsk knows about it. Minsk well informed about it, and this is warning shots that if any sabotage groups will be sent to Belarus, if any destabilization attempts will be made from Warsaw against Belarus, then things may escalate very quickly and not in favor of Poland. So I guess Warsaw will listen. Warsaw will listen, because nuclear weapons are always serious stuff. Always. TASS news agency is reporting that Eurasian Economical Union countries sign a full-scale free trade agreement with Iran. This is big deal. This is definitely big deal. In St. Petersburg, forum is taking place of leaders of European Economical Union, and also Commonwealth of Independent States, republics, former Soviet republics. And when I see this information, I could not ignore it, of course, because this is big deal. This is big deal. One huge step to further increase capabilities of this new trade route, north-south, from Russia to that goes from Russia through Iran. So this is a big deal, definitely, and it will benefit, of course, all countries, all participant countries, Iran and members of Eurasian Economical Union, also members of EAEU sign agreement for cooperation for next decades to come, until 35 and then until 45. So some progress is have been made also in terms of further integration of economics of Eurasian Economical Union. And when it comes to members of this organization, let me share with you information. So Eurasian Economical Union member states are Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Russia. Let's continue now, and RT is reporting that Russian Central Bank reveals the most painful sanctions from all those 18,000 ones that were imposed on Russia. So the seizure of Russian assets, including funds belonging to millions of private investors, and the restrictions on international payments have been the most painful sanctions imposed by Western countries over the Ukraine conflict. The head of Russian Central Bank, Elvira Nabiullina, told RBK in an interview on Monday. Well, there is no need really to go in details here. It was obvious from the very beginning, and I did mention many times before in my updates that when it comes to Western sanctions, of course they did harm Russian economy. After all, it's 18,000 sanctions that we are talking about, one way or another, but they did harm Russian economy, although economy did manage to withstand it. And the most severe and most noticeable, if you live in Russia, you will notice these sanctions mainly only when it comes to exactly these Western financial systems and sanctions on Russian banks. Because you know, after all, if you want to buy something in the West, for example, you just open the site. Before sanctions, it was like, you open site, see whatever you like to buy, you buy, purchase, you pay with your card and wait for a package to arrive. Now, it's not so easy. It's not so easy. MasterCard and Visa left Russia, and it's I don't even know at this point. If you ask me, I may find a way to pay, for example, for notebook if I want to buy notebooks somewhere, I don't know, in Germany, for example. I may find a way to pay for it. but it's not as easy now as it was before. So for ordinary citizens, definitely what Nabiullina says now has every sense, absolutely makes all sense, because that's a main area that these sanctions have been felt by citizens of Russia. And also I will say travel restrictions. Western ruling class did raise this iron curtain now, and it's not so easy to travel into the Western states, although this is not as important, I will say, as some other sectors of the economy. I mean, tourism, maybe not as important for Russia. No, I'm not saying correctly. Russians traveling abroad is not as impactful on Russian economy, because after all, they were spending money there, isn't it? In the Western states. So it did not hurt Russia at all. It benefited Russia. It did benefited Russia because now these tourists, significant number of them, are traveling inside Russia and spending their money here inside the country and benefiting our own economy. But when it comes to life in Russia, if you're living in Russia, then that's two major areas that you will feel Western sanctions. One is a banking system. Sanctions on Russian banking system from the West, and difficulties if you want to pay for some goods or services in the outside of Russia, especially in the Western world. And the other one is restrictions on travel that was imposed by Western states. Otherwise, you would not feel any sanctions at all. Otherwise, you would not feel any sanctions at all. And, well, I have to agree with Nabiullina. In economical terms, yes, probably freezing of assets and sanctions on banking system was the most difficult one for Russia. But it will be overcome, and it's only a matter of time. And BRICS will come up with some alternative financial system, alternative banking system. Some steps already have been made in this direction, and eventually world will receive this alternative from the Western system that is basically have been used as a weapon time after time against countries, against businesses, against individuals. So we are moving in that direction, and at some point we would not need any Western financial institutions at all. That's how it's going to be, and there will be two economical and financial systems in this world, as it was said already by big names in finances, and including World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and some huge banks themselves, their analytics. Anyway, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that Oreshkin aide of Russian President Maxim Oreshkin did make quite interesting statement about state of Russian economy, and let me read a few sentences, if I may. So according to him, Russia has become the largest economy in Europe and is already breathing down Japan in the race for the fourth place in the world. Presidential aide Maxim Oreshkin said in an interview with the Expert magazine. According to him, the so-called economies of the global north, the USA, Japan, the EU, are slowly losing their significance. China has become the leading economy. Russia has become the largest economy in Europe, which is already breathing in the Japan's back in the race for fourth place, and Asian economies have risen very seriously in their rankings. India took third place, Indonesia rose to seventh, and will soon begin to storm Germany's position, which ranks sixth, Oreshkin said. So all this information, let me also translate this sentence here. all this information may be somewhat surprising for some members of our community, but that's information that we have here. So China is the world's largest economy by purchasing power parity in the 2022, according to World Bank data. The United States was the second place, India was in the third place, and Japan was the fourth place. Russia rounded out the top 5 countries, and Germany remained in the 6th place. So this is according to purchasing power parity. This is not the GDP, according to GDP, but purchasing power parity, which is alternative scale of measurements of importance of world economies. And Russia is well, most important economy in Europe. How about that? Quite interesting, isn't it? Well, some may argue with this. Some may say that it's still German economy is number one and no one can come close to it. But unfortunately, because of the actions of leadership of modern Germany, economy there is struggling, really struggling, and many companies are migrating towards North America, and tens of thousands of jobs are lost on regular basis, probably hundreds of thousands at this point, just because of the Western sanctions and actions of German government, this Russophobic, anti-Russian actions of German government. So formally, by GDP, Germany is number one economy. Yes, but according to World Bank, by purchasing power parity, Russia is number one in Europe and number 5 in the world. So, well, this is it for now. This is it for now. There was times, I do remember, man, that Russia, Germany, and France were very close to assemble some kind of triad alliance, economical first of all, and that would be so huge deal, man, if Russia, Germany, and France will manage to do so. But unfortunately, Washington and London derailed this process, and now we all see in which state relationships between Russia and Germany or Russia and France is. Between leaderships, of course, I mean, because on level of people, I don't think Germans hate Russians. I don't think French people hate Russians. And I'm quite sure there is very few people in Russia that hates Germans or French or anybody really, you know. But when it comes to relationships between the governments, states, then, well, it is what it is, man. This is it for now. It's still more than an hour. Unbelievable, man. I was quite sure that this update would not be longer than 40-45 minutes, but it's more than an hour anyway. It is what it is. Okay, this is it for now. This is it for now. I hope you will find this update interesting, and if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like, and share video with your friends. And if you think this channel, this project is interesting, useful, informative, and deserves to exist, please consider to support my work with small donations through PayPal, buy me coffee, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You can see links under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. And I remind you, dear friends, before I go, that you know, it is extremely important to me to further develop all the channels, of course, but I want to focus on Rumble, especially Rumble, because it's a free subscription after all. And well, please consider to subscribe on Rumble. If you can see links also under this video in the description box or in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.